This presentation we're going to go through some of the tips about judging the English equitation class. So kind of similar to our Western horsemanship, it really is judged on really how the horse performs for the rider. So it's a combination of the horse's performance and the rider's skills. And as far as I'm concerned, it's the responsibility of the rider to negotiate and to communicate to their horse how to get them through the pattern, how to have correctness of their gaits and those types of things. During this class, yes, the rider's position is evaluated both on the pattern and in the rail work. And so kind of depend on the association that you're judging for. You do need to double check what the rules are. Some associations require them to do a pattern and rail work. However, there are some that really only require them to do pattern work and don't require the rail. So it's really important to understand and know what is supposed to happen for whatever association you might be judging for. So similar also to our other classes, we always talk about the hierarchy of judging and looking at the correctness first that they go through the class for, then look at the quality, and the third one is going to be the degree of difficulty. So when we're looking at the overall correctness, we'll both look at the rider correctness, looking at how they negotiate the pattern, how they are on the rail. I will here in a minute go through the different penalties that are assessed, and that's all going to go through a lot with the rider's correctness. The rider correctness and also how correct they are on the pattern, and then on the rail. Quality is going to come into play with, you might kind of say this is into your maneuver scores, the prettiness of things, how soft the horse is, how well the rider communicates to the horse, you know, how smooth they are, and those different kinds of things. Degree of difficulty is also going to be where you can greatly increase your maneuver scores when they go through, say, a pattern and make it, do it to a higher degree, maybe have a little bit more forward impulsion in some areas, adjust a little bit the way that their circles are, going through the various maneuvers. And so those are some things that an individual rider, knowing their ability and the ability of their horse, can really help to elevate their score. Now, as you're putting together patterns or selecting patterns, remember it's very important that they should really just be able to evaluate what the horse is doing and the rider and the horse. So make sure that they are appropriate for the level of show that you might be judging. There really shouldn't be any tricks within those patterns. They should be fairly straightforward and give you something that you can fairly evaluate everyone on. As you put a pattern together, it should be very easy and self-explanatory. So if you get a lot of questions, you might say, I need to reevaluate how this pattern is put together because maybe it's too vague and it's not specific enough. Really, you need to evaluate what's posted in the pattern and not have any hidden agendas within there. And then every pattern is going to have some different elements that a rider can really go to increase their score and be able to give credit with the degree of difficulty that the rider chooses to do and make a plan for how they're going to negotiate that pattern to increase their degree of difficulty within it. So to talk about a few of the elements that we're going to judge them on, and this is going to go both with correctness and also improving a person's quality. Remember, just as in our Western classes, we really look for a straight line down through the rider's shoulder, hip, and heel. Yes, their position is going to be slightly different because it's the English class, and remember they will have the two hands on the rail because it is the English class. But this rider, and I can't tell you, this is a still picture, I can't tell you if this is from a hunter under saddle class or a hunt seat equitation class. However, they really do have a fairly nice pattern. She's in the so you can see it through her shoulder, hip, and heel. Maybe her foot is a little bit forward. She's got an appropriate length to her stirrup, to her iron here. Her hands are in an okay position, and she's up and looking for the direction that she's going. On the black horse here, we see a rider that's very good on the lower portion. She's got a lot of good base. I would say with her upper body, she's tilted just a bit more forward than what we would like to see. Her hand position is maybe a tad bit back, but a fairly effective and decent position for this rider. Looking at a couple others here, this individual rider, I would say that her irons are maybe a little bit short. To me, she's got more tilted a little bit more forward. Her hands are back more than what we would like them to see. So getting probably down here into an average or below average score with her position. This rider here, for a hunt seat et class, I would say she's going to be in the lower scores. She's got a lot of different kinds of things going on here. You can see her hands are very back, her legs are more forward and not being very effective on the horse, and so and also if you would probably see this person in real time, I would assume she's not very relaxed because she looks like her and the horse are having a little bit of an argument here. And the same rider I'll pick on again with her hands. Her hands are way back. She appears to be pulling on that horse and not very soft and communicating. They're not really communicating together as well as we would like to see. This rider here, if we're mainly looking at her hands and even her position, is very acceptable. They are in a very good position. She's got a nice soft rein on her horse, and they're up in this position where we would like to see them. Also remember that depending on the association you might be judging for, you might have a variety of different types of horses or types of presentations that you judge. If you're doing open shows, 4-H shows, occasionally they might have some saddle seat riders in with their English horse. They might call it English horsemanship. And so you just need to be fair and understand where you might be going so you can know if you do run into some folks that are showing a combination, some saddle seat, some hunt seat, what's appropriate for them, because their position is going to be quite a bit different than what we see in our hunter folks. This is another one I just wanted to point out some things was, yes, she's at rest, she's not going down the rail, but things to notice if she was in a class, her reins are very loose and very uneven, she's tilted back, her legs are quite a bit forward, and so granted she's sitting there at rest, but if she was going down the rail, those are some things to kind of notice in that position of the rider. I will pick on rein length just a little bit because the hunt seat horses are supposed to be ridden in hand with light contact, and so you need to be aware of this and pay attention. Both of these horses are really on an appropriate rein length. That's a soft rein length. The horses are very broke at the poll, soft in their mouth, and those types of things. But I really probably for an equitation class would not want to see their reins much longer than this because they should really be ridden with what we consider a light contact. This rider, again, one that I'll come back and pick on again, these reins are probably a bit tighter than what you like to see. He appears to be a little bit on the muscle or on the fight. This is another one that's kind of has a very broke appearance to it and acceptable. And I don't have one for an English horse that's really unacceptable, but those are some of the guidelines you might see. Something else that we have different in our English classes versus the Western are the diagonals, all right? And naturally they are evaluated at the trot. Remember, the horse has a 2-beat diagonal gait with the inside front and outside hind moving together and vice versa, outside front and inside hind, okay? The little phrase that we use to easily remember it is the rider should rise and fall with the leg on the wall. So you'll see when we move into the penalties, there are 5 and 10 point penalties if they're on the incorrect diagonal, depending on the length that they go, because really for our English classes it is as important as being on the correct lead. I will note that this is critical for equitation. If you have a rider come in on a hunter under saddle class that's not on the correct diagonal, that is not a fault for the hunter under saddle class. They might look a little funky, a little different, but you're not evaluating that in a hunter under saddle class. However, in the ET classes, both in the pattern and the rail, they do need to be on the correct diagonal. If a person is trotting down the center on a straight line, unless it is designated, the diagonal does not matter. They have to be on the correct diagonal as they go into a curve. So here's just a couple still pictures of some young ladies, and these are good examples of correctness and that are also probably lacking a little bit in quality. The young lady here, this horse is, as we saw, rise and fall with the leg on the wall. So as the leg on the wall is down, she is downward position in her post. This young lady, the horse's outside leg on the wall is rising, and she is rising. Okay. When I was just starting to do this, I actually, and sometimes I still do, would post with these riders with my head and make sure that I was in sync. Also, if you're not very comfortable with picking up a horse's diagonals and you should have a trot in the pattern, have them trot a long time. Don't do it just for a few strides to give both the riders and yourself a good opportunity to make sure that they are on the correct diagonal. Okay, so to talk about the scoring system, and this is many of these things are going to be with correctness, and some of them will have a little bit to do with quality, but what I'm going to do is these rules have just been updated for 2019 for both the quarter horse and paint associations. Again, there's a variety of you out there that are judging for a variety of different associations, so it's very important that you double check to see what they're using. Some will be very specific, some will be a little bit more general, and so make sure you're appropriate for whomever you might be judging for. The thing that I like about these scoring systems is if you're coaching a judging team or doing some of those types of things, it does help you quantify and standardize how you're assessing different things that might happen within a pattern or within a class. Okay, so what we're going to be doing for what these two major associations are going to be moving to in 2019, or we'll be doing it then, is the scoring systems are going to be on a scale of 0 to infinity, with 70 being 70 being average. These are set up very much like what we have for the other pattern classes of trail, western riding, reining, those types of things. Maneuver scores are going to be from a -3 to a +3. If you're familiar with judging cattle classes, this is the same scale that we use in the cattle classes. They are going to go up and down by half-point increments, so a +0.5, +1.5, +2.5, and those types of things. A 0 score for the maneuver, okay, again, which is looking at the quality, is basically going to be where they're doing it correct with really no degree of difficulty. Okay, there also is a final box that's assessed at the completion of the run for overall form and effectiveness, and that's going to be given on a scale of 0 to a +5. There's no negatives there, but for a very high quality, high degree difficulty pattern, you can give them up to a +5 in that particular category. Okay, so the penalties we're going to have, we have minor, major, and severe. We have had these for some time. However, the point deductions for these are a bit different than they had been. So minors are going to be a -3, major penalties a -5, and severe penalties a -10. So for our English equitation or hunt seat act classes, kind of these are going to be some of what the penalties are. So minor penalties, which are going to be again a -3 if they break a gait of at a walk or trot for up to 2 strides, over or under turning for an eighth to a fourth, a tick or a hit of a cone. So, and these are very much the same as what we have in the Western horsemanship. Naturally, the English class, because we have the diagonal issue, they do come into the penalties. So it's going to be a -3 penalty each time they obviously look down to check for the diagonal. A quick glance might be one thing, and that's a judgment call of, you know, how obvious is it that they do look down to check for their diagonals. Okay, the 5-point penalties, again, many of these are the same that are in Western horsemanship. There are a few specific for equitation. So the incorrect lead or break a gait at a canter, break a gait at the walk or trot for more than 2 strides. Okay, here's one specific for the English, is missing the diagonal for up to 2 strides, either on the pattern or on the rail. Okay, so when you have that, you need to make sure that they are on the correct diagonal. If they don't perform the specific gait within 10 feet of where they're supposed to do it at, loss of contact between the rider's hand and the horse's mouth, loss of an iron versus loss of a stirrup, and the bit about the head carriage. Severe penalties are going to come into play. Again, these are very similar to horsemanship except for a few. So the free hand for severe praise. Again, remember, anytime that you reach down and pet your horse on the neck, saying good boy, that's going to be a 10-point penalty. Holding on to the stallion, the saddle, probably not one we see as much in this class, but it is there. Blatant disobediences such as a buck, a rear, a kick, those types of things. Spurring or using a crop in front of the girth, losing a rein, and here's a severe for the diagonal, missing the diagonal for more than 2 strides. Disqualifications, ones that they should not be placed, and these would be in pretty much most of your classes. These up here in the black are going to be very standard across all of our classes as far as not having the correct number, abuse or schooling, falling, illegal equipment or illegal use of hands. Those are standard across everything. Off patterns, most of these are going to be the same as our horsemanship, of knocking over the cone or going on the wrong side of the cone, never performing the gait, lead, or here we also have if they're never on the correct diagonal, over or under turning by more than an eighth. Now remember, if you're judging for AQHA or competing in AQHA in their rookie or their novice, which is also the level 1 or level youth or amateur, these things in orange are not considered disqualification, but they're going to be placed over exhibitors that do everything else that don't incur one of these types of things. So just kind of remember that, and that's different for basically the novice to level 1, youth amateur, or the rookie classes. So as we kind of wrap this up, it's been really brief, just some of the basic rules. Remember, you really need to watch some runs and kind of get a feel for it. But remember, we always go back with our hierarchy of judging, and first they have to go through the class correct, go through the pattern correct, have their position correct, and those types of things. Quality also is going to come into a little bit with their position, how accurate they are, and smooth through the pattern, their good communication to the horse. All these various things are going to come into the overall quality. Then for them to really increase their scores and get into the plus side of things, the upper plus side of things, those are going to be where the rider chooses to increase their degree of difficulty through the pattern, through the rail. Do they go slow? Do they increase their pace? And those different kinds of things are going to help to increase that rider's degree of difficulty. So I hope this has given you some good insight on judging our Hunt Seat Equitation class.